Hello and welcome to episode 62 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. I'm your host, Robert Simon, Pale Robbie on the boards. I am filled with rage today. Fair
So
warning.
it's
I am in a
so it's
Everyone is
not. It's just like
surprised.
every other day.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. But it's far worse. I've reached Super Saiyan level 2 levels of rage right now. So we're gonna get there in a few minutes. Joining us once again is the editor in chief. He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, this is John. Yeah.
Where you been, John?
You've been doing podcasts at bad times and canceling them and redoing them and all that kind of fun stuff.
It's easy to shift the blame.
Well,
Oh yeah, totally.
what the? Oh, for God's sake. This is just what I'm talking about with the whole wedding thing. Like, you can't win. You can't make everybody happy. All right, moving on. Moving on. All right, we have the guy who finally beat Persona 4.
Me, Stephen Meyerink, Talus on the boards.
Excellent. And then the guy who thinks he has nothing to talk about today, but he's here anyway because, he's going to ask me lots of questions and keep my check.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Yeah, sure. I'm Derek Eamsberg, and I'm Embryon on the boards, and I hate Western RPGs. All of them.
You mean like that guy Kyle who hates JRPGs?
Yeah,
Wow.
we have to have one of each.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm apparently the JRPG. See, but when we talk about Dragon's Dogma, I don't know. Should I be attacking it as a JRPG or a JRPG that's trying to be a Western RPG, or what should I do here?
It's not. Don't categorize it. It's just butt.
All right, let's stay on topic though. Stay on topic. We'll
Okay.
get to that.
All right. I want to start with positive stuff right now first. So, John, you played a little Dead Island Riptide, correct?
I played more than a little. I played all of it.
Okay. And I was kind of surprised because you were I don't want to say you were harsh or negative on the first game, but you were kind of like, yeah, this is a game with some problems, but overall, it's fun. And you were one of the few reviewers it looked like for Riptide that actually increased your score, and you were like, hey, there's some better stuff going on in this game.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised. I don't know what people's expectations were going into Dead Island Riptide. I mean, it's coming in at a lower price point, and it really doesn't have a whole lot that's different. I didn't go into this expecting, okay, new Dead Island, we're going to do something that's completely different. I didn't expect that at all. Essentially, it's Dead Island 1.5. You have a bunch of people killing zombies on a Pacific island, and then they go to a city and kill some more zombies, and they're uncovering, oh god, here's the government. That's it. It's exactly like the first game, except it's smoother, it's prettier, and the controls are better.
I'm interested because one point of contention that people had with the original Dead Island was there were two types of control methods. There was the analog and the digital. And by default, I think both games have digital over analog, correct?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Like you can control the swing of your melee attacks using the analog sticks. And then there was like the digital version of the controls where you would just press a button and attack. And it seems like people only like one control style over the other. Is that correct?
You know what? I will be completely honest, is that I didn't play things with the analog style. I just went with the standard style.
Okay.
Because that's kind of comfortable for me. It is, okay, let's kill these dudes. It just plays like a first-person shooter. So I honestly can't tell you how that control scheme is because it's something that really didn't interest me.
Okay. Now, I wasn't trying to get you. I was interested because a lot of people said that like there's a great deal of strategy involved with that analog control system, but the game gives you no indication that it even exists, and it kind of sounds like that's the case right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was something where I saw a mention of it and I was like, whatever, I'm just going to stick with the standard controls.
Okay. Story still kind of.
The story is absolutely awful.
Oh dear.
You know what? I gave it a higher story score than the first. I bumped it up 15 points from 40 to 55.
Because of exploding dumpster.
Yeah, no, bulldozer.
Exploding bulldozer.
Bulldozer. I'm
Get that
sorry.
Right.
Now I'm going to read you some of the fantastic dialogue from this game. Rob, you're going to have to bleep some of this afterward.
Oh, can we not do? Can you just bleep it yourself then, please? Because like I don't want to edit all that tonight.
Okay, fine then.
Bleepity bleep bleep bleep.
We will just go into it.
Just say honk in place of any curse word. Honk.
Okay, So, for example, man, would you honk up and listen? Look, this guy traveling with us got soaked in those God-honked chemical honk. And they did something to him, changed him into a honking monster. Guts and Honk hanging out. Is that going to happen to me? This game does not take itself seriously
way
at
better.
all.
I'll tell you what, though, that's better than the entire third season of The Walking Dead right there, though.
And the first and second, the writing is awful on that show.
Yep.
And then you also get like my favorite line, which was, "Hell yeah, exploding bulldozer sounds a whole lot cooler than just a plain bulldozer."
They're adding to the extreme factor.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
about
man.
as serious as the dialogue gets in the game.
It sounds like a lot of the reviewers are complaining about the same thing I think some people did when Borderlands 2 came out, which is the first one came out, they reviewed it well, and then the second one came out, and it was a refined version of the first one, and people were surprised. And well, it didn't advance the genre. What did you expect? Did you not watch a single thing from it? And it seems like the same deal here.
Yeah, well, this even the first Dead Island really did nothing to expand the genre.
Yeah.
It was Borderlands with zombies and melee weapons. The thing that I really like about Riptide over the original is that it's not nearly as focused on fixing your weapons. The first one, it was like, oh yeah, here, you've got this sword, but you're going to use it 4 times and it's going to break.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, there are workbenches everywhere. Weapons don't take as long to, or weapons take longer to break. And it just feels like, okay, I'm not spending every single piece of money that I get on repairing my weapons.
I remember that was kind of annoying in the first one.
I had lots of money that I could spend, and that kind of freed me up to be, instead of going, okay, I'm going to make this one good weapon, I'm just going to keep it repaired until I find another really good weapon. Now it's just like, oh, I got a metal baseball bat? Okay, let's build the thing that makes it electrocute zombies. Or let's turn it into a giant spinning saw blade that will actually slice limbs off. I felt like I had more time to explore those systems, even though I actually spent less time with the game overall. Dead Island Riptide is only about as long as you want it to be. I beat it in 10 hours, but I didn't do a great deal of side questing.
Okay. Did they alter the approach to skills? Are there still skill trees and stuff?
Yeah, it's the skill trees are almost exactly the same. Really, the only addition to the gameplay system is what's called Group Rage. And it's just an enhanced version of the Rage system. And
What is it? A bunch of dudes on NeoGAF just get together and get really pissed off?
Yes, that's exactly what. No, it's.
No, it's pretty much just one of our podcasts with Robert the host.
Yeah,
Robert the
Rob.
head, I mean.
No, all of your enemies turn red. The world goes black and white, and you hit them with your fists instead of with your weapons, and you do a great deal of damage. But depending on who you are, you can better break bones or things like that.
Kind of feels like this is in that old tradition of the expansion pack, like with a lower price point, and you don't need the original Dead Island game to play this, so
Yeah, this really does feel like kind of. I think that's why they didn't call it Dead Island 2.
It's like Far Cry Warhead. It was just same engine, tightened up, new campaign, but same game.
Yeah, pretty much.
So overall, you enjoyed it more than the original, though.
Yeah, because I got the same amount of enjoyment out of it. It was better controlling. It was less buggy, though apparently other people have had bugs. And I don't know if this is platform-based. I played Dead Island Riptide on the PC. I've been hearing a lot of issues with people having bugs, but they played on the console versions. So I don't know if there's a difference there, but the PC version was great.
Cool.
I actually kind of enjoyed the way that the game randomizes loot. You'll open containers. I ran into a point where I opened a computer and there was meat inside.
That's the BioShock Infinite approach to everything. It's just like inside this desk is cotton candy and popcorn.
Yes.
Man.
But I mean, they're really. I was kind of surprised at the general negative tone. I mean, I talked to a couple of people who really liked the first game and didn't like this one, and I can't say that I get it because it just feels smoother overall.
You think we're going to see another Dead Island on the next gen consoles? I feel like that's kind of a given at this point.
I'm sure the original Dead Island made them a ton of money. I'm sure that Riptide is going to sell decent, if not well.
What all games does Deep Silver make?
All
Because
right.
we have freaking Call of Juarez.
Don't they make Saints Row?
Okay, so Deep Silver is owned by a company called Koch Media.
Okay.
And Koch Media is actually a fairly large entertainment company in Europe. They've really kind of made the push lately to turn Deep Silver into a legitimately large brand.
Mm-hmm.
So when THQ went under, they bought Saints Row and Metro.
Okay.
They also bought the developer Volition. I mean, previously they'd published really kind of mid-tier stuff. I mean, they published Risen 2. They published an ATV game called Nailed. Prison Break, the original Risen, a bunch of crappy DS games. But coming up, they've got the new Sacred. As I said, they're doing Metro Last Light.
Last Light.
Yeah, they just published Sacred Citadel, the side-scrolling beat 'em up. So they're kind of shifting from being a mid-tier developer publisher, where they actually, the original Dead Island was a distribution deal with Square Enix. I think they're kind of going to become in the THQ position where they're going to be a smaller, large publisher.
Huh. Okay. So I'm sure we'll see something. We'll see a next gen version of it. If we're ready to move on, I found your comment about how you were like, oh yeah, people are being really negative on this game, and you're really positive about it. Yep, I feel the exact opposite about another game we're about ready to talk about. Who boys?
Well, Rob, why don't you tell us everything that you hate about Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen?
Okay, so
Is it because it has dragons in it?
Yeah, you caught me. If anything has a dragon in it, I don't like it.
Oh man, but yeah, you hate Game of Thrones, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, I despise Game of Thrones. That's clearly not the best show.
So.
Clearly
Dracarys.
not. Clearly not the best show on television. So I got Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen, and
I'm gonna start by saying I'm sorry.
yeah, I was really intrigued by this game. So I played the demo for the original Dragon's Dogma when it was on PSN. And it's kind of it was a weird demo where like it's a dark fantasy game. You're down in like this dungeon and there's this freaking chimera that comes out and you crawl all over it and stabby. And I'm playing it. I'm like, okay, there's some stuff going on here. There's the old school approach to fantasy. It feels very dark, very gritty. You have a faux multiplayer system, which I want to go into in a few seconds. But I'm playing it. I'm like, okay, there's some promise here. I'll give this a shot. And I didn't pick it up actually when it was just Dragon's Dogma, and then I heard Dark Arisen was coming out. What I found interesting was Kyle's review, and Kyle and I see eye to eye on lots and lots of games. We're pretty eye to eye. Maybe like Witcher 2 is the only game we disagree on quite a bit. But like when it comes to BioShock Infinite, Dark Souls, we're very much in agreement. But I thought, hey, maybe this is one of those instances where Kyle's really down on this game, and I'm going to be real positive on it. If anything, I am more negative on this game than Kyle. I find Dragon's Dogma to be utterly devoid of life, to be completely uninteresting, to be trying way too many things, completely lacking focus, completely missing gameplay systems that have been put in place to not make games easier. I think that's where a lot of people are like, oh, it's ultra hardcore and that makes it awesome. No. Not having a fast travel in a game and forcing me to...
That's time wasting.
Yeah, forcing me to walk 20 minutes to a quest giver, turning the quest, only to have another quest send me back in the exact same direction I just came from. That's not hardcore. You're wasting my bloody time right now. And I'm playing this game and I am physically ill. I am physically ill playing this game. I feel like crap playing it. Please ask me questions so I can focus my rage here a little bit.
Now, let's talk about the... before the podcast, Rob kept yelling something about, like, every action game needs a lock-on. If it doesn't have a lock-on, it's doing it wrong, which I have to disagree with. I think that plenty of games work just fine with a soft lock. So I would like for you to expand on what I just put in your mouth.
So the lock-on system, the lock-on system in this game, and I can see where John's coming from. I'm very much a fan of a hard lock-on system when the game requires it, when you need to like move around the environment, and it's all about placement. And especially if you have a shield, I feel like having a lock-on system makes it really good. Dragon's Dogma has a soft lock-on system, which means that your player character will attack usually what's close to him. This game's soft lock on system is more of a suggestion than anything else, where you kind of point the character in the right direction, you start attacking, and because you can't lock onto the game, you don't have traditional sword and shield combat. It kind of feels like a slower. It feels like you're playing Devil May Cry in the mud. Like you're just spinning your wheels and you're not hitting things quite as fast as you feel that you ought to. Your character isn't locking in on the enemies properly. All an enemy has to do to avoid your attack is slowly walk past you. And since you don't have a system for locking onto them with a shield or being able to sidestep around them, you basically just have to pray that you end up hitting them. And it feels very, very clunky. It just feels slow and out of place, and everything just you're sitting there swinging your sword and you're just not connecting with anything because people are just walking around you. Like when the enemy's main source of getting away from you hurting it is to just walk, that's pretty terrible, and you end up leaving yourself completely open to attacks from behind just because the soft lock is slowly turning you, maybe not in the direction of the enemy that you're trying to hit. You're trying to isolate a mage, and instead your dude's just attacking the random knight with his shield up in front of you. It's just
Now,
ugh.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I don't like Dragon's Dogma personally, but what's to stop somebody from arguing that that is simply part of the game, and that say that lining up your shots is an expectation of skill on the player's part? And
That
again,
sounds like
I'm
Monster Hunter logic.
I'm devil's advocating here because I disagree with that logic. I think that fighting with the system is not a skill. If you choose to find fun in that, that's great.
Right.
But you should not have to struggle to accomplish basic tasks. However, if someone were to make that argument and they're not trying to say you're wrong, how would you argue against that?
Well, I think what it comes down to is that as I try to get the bell off of my kitty right now, I think the problem with that argument is that the AI, both the enemy AI and the pawn AI, doesn't really respond to you in any realistic way. So like you'll have three enemies getting ready to rush straight at you. You're initiating combat with them. I run up to one of the enemies and I start trying to attack him. I hit him once, and then he just walks past me. Like it's not. I'm trying to line up this hit on an enemy, and it's not like in Monster Hunter where you're trying to hit like this big enemy, and you've got a little bit of leeway with where your shots are coming in. You're trying to hit a relatively small enemy, at least with the normal, regular, everyday dudes that don't really seem to care about your presence, and they just seem to randomly lock onto people. Like I had at one point, I had an enemy who just was beating up on my mage. He just stopped, looked at me, ran 20 yards straight at me, and started attacking me. And I was like, I wasn't even doing anything. Like, I wasn't attacking anybody. I was just standing there. So, and it constantly feels like the game is working against you. Like, you're sitting there trying to hit people, and they're either not paying attention to you, or, and this is where the game really starts to fall apart, the game works on like a whole stun system. So, like, you want to be doing enough damage to kind of stun lock the enemy and keep hitting them. The game is completely arbitrary in whether or not the enemy will respond to your stun lock. One of my attacks as an assassin is I like dig the sword straight into their chest and then I wrench it out. And so like you have a first initial hit and then 5 hits as you bring the sword out. I hit him with the first hit and it stunned him. The second hit, when he started pulling out the sword, stunned him. The third hit, the enemy broke the stun and just planted a sword in my head. So I'm sitting there going, I had no way of breaking this combat animation, and I just got hit, and there's nothing I could do about it. The enemy just disregarded what I was doing to him, and then just planted an axe in my face. Like it's one of those like I don't understand what this game wants me to do. It's not allowing me to fluidly move around enemies and attack, nor is it making it advantageous for me to practice any kind of strategy. Every time I try to practice strategy, the whole game just turns into like a Smash Brothers brawl with like people just getting thrown everywhere, no semblance of what's going on. No one's paying attention to anything. I've had enemies just stand in place staring at me. Like, well, I just don't do anything to them. It feels like it's a very half-baked combat system.
I've only played the demo of the original, but that was the vibe I started to get from the demo, was that there was some promise there, and that there were really cool concepts there, but it felt very janky to me, even in the demo. And I immediately said to myself, I go, people are going to flock to this like they do Monster Hunter, like they do Dynasty Warriors, although Dynasty Warriors actually works. But and they're going to fall in love with what I would say is being called a technical system, but is actually just a broken system.
I,
So
I just, Derek, you were gonna say something?
I was gonna say on the subject of jank, like how does it run? I mean,
Oh,
is like
oh
frame rate
God.
good? Is it?
Oh, thank you, Derek. I needed this. Um, so out in the field,
Search your feelings,
so
open your hate.
it's kind of a very much in Skyrim vein where it's like you can go into towns and there'll be a short loading screen between towns, but the environment of Gransys is pretty open and you can go anywhere. In dungeons, the game runs at a good solid 30 frames a second. In the environments, when you start any form of combat, the game is running around 20. And
Ugh.
it makes any I started out playing as an archer character, and the jank was so bad, like the frame rate was so bad, I had to switch because I could not hit anything. Like I'm sitting there trying to attack these harpies, and like one wing flap of the harpy, it's like a stop motion animation from the 1960s. Like I just can't even tell what I'm trying to hit. It feels like it felt like my arrow shots were going through the wings, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I need to be hitting the center of their body. The enemies aren't reacting to anything I'm hitting. Like the game runs like crap. I really wish this was on a PC where feel like even a decent graphics card would be able to handle this game. I mean,
Well, that
the game
that
looks
doesn't.
like butt. I mean, it's not like this game looks great. It looks
But
terrible.
that has nothing to do with how the game runs. That
Yeah,
has to do with
it's
optimization. I mean,
exactly.
you can have games that just chew up the GPU all day. I mean, look at Minecraft.
Yeah. Slender the Arrival does the same thing. I'm kind of surprised, like the new Slender game, like it chews up 90% of my GPU, and I'm just sitting there like, what? Like, where is this doing this? I don't understand it. But no, you're right. Like, this game does not feel optimized. Dragon's Dogma literally feels like a beta test in terms of how the combat mechanics work, in terms of how the game runs. It looks terrible. Like the game just looks washed out, muddy. The textures are awful. It's like the game has no excuse to run this poor when it looks this bad. The game is devoid of any kind of art direction. I mean, I said to former editor in chief Eric, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be real positive on Skyrim for a second because for all my problems with Skyrim, at least that is a cohesive, immersive world that I can lose myself in. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the combat, but whatever, I can enjoy that game. Dragon's Dogma is devoid of any of that. It lacks any kind of emotion, any kind of resonance, no immersion factor. It's got a running system in the game, and you can only run for short distances, so you're constantly just walking very slowly down a path. It just, how can you have a quest system in a game that just wastes your time this badly? Like, I'm playing this game, and I've literally gone 2 or 3 hours playing this game and completed one quest and just wasted all my time. How can you have an open world game where, this was a problem I had with Skyrim, where when you die, and you can die out of anywhere in this game, the only indication that you have that you are fighting an enemy you shouldn't be fighting is when you attack it and you literally do like no damage to it. And that's when you're like, oh, I really shouldn't be fighting this thing right now. And then it kills you in one hit. And since
Mm.
the game's checkpoint system is awful, there's a difference between checkpoints and save states. So when you die, you have a selection between 4 different options of where you want to restart. It's just it is mind-boggling how bad this game is. And then I haven't even gotten to the pawn system, so ask more questions before I get to the pawn system, which I think is the biggest affront to this game. Please ask me things.
I don't
I
know. It
feel
doesn't really sound like anything I'm interested in playing. I mean, I played the demo of original Dragon's Dogma and I didn't really like it. So based on everything you're saying, it's like, well, why would I
Now,
bother?
I'm going to go on a side before Rob gets into his gameplay system. One thing that I found incredibly interesting about this is I've talked to a few people who were fans of the original Dragon's Dogma because they liked the idea, even though they understood that it wasn't, a perfect game. They've actually liked Dark Arisen less. I mean, everything that Rob's talking about here is kind of
that's the game.
that's Dragon's Dogma and Dark Arisen, and it's kind of unfortunate that Rob hasn't played the first iteration because he can't do comparisons. But even though the Dark Arisen expansion is supposed to fix lots of things, it seems like it's broken even more.
Yeah. I haven't even like at the very start of the game they opened up the high level dungeon, the Bitterback Island or whatever the hell it's called, and I can't go there. Like you have to be at least level 50 to go there. I'm like level 24. Like if I go there, I'm just going to get annihilated. So I can't even enjoy that system. And then they do another bizarre thing where if you have an original Dragon's Dogma save, you get access to fairy stones, which will bring you back to the Grand Central City. But if you don't have those, then you still have to buy very ridiculously priced fast travel items, which aren't as ridiculously overpriced before. They used to cost like 5,000 gold. Now they're only 2,000. But with no fast travel system in this game, like it's just a slog. Like it's just an absolute slog. The first time you travel through Skyrim and you come upon new areas and you get to a city, you're like, oh well, I did the exploring through this area through these woods, and now I get to fast travel there whenever I want. Cool, great. Dragon's Dogma, I have to continually run into the same pack of goblins that is sitting outside of the starting area every time I go through this area.
Well, a question: how expensive really is that in the context of things? Because is it just that the game expects you to buy these things and carry them with you?
I mean, the game has given me no indication to even buy these things. I had to look up on a wiki where to find everything. I completely missed the apothecary in order to buy healing items because it wasn't listed on my map until I walked over and talked to somebody.
I mean, I have to at least argue against that because one of our favorite games
Oh, yeah.
also does not tell you where and when to buy certain items you would need. Not necessarily travel items, but you can't. In Dark Souls, the game never says Homeward Bone is kind of important.
But I would completely agree with you. But where Dark Souls does it better in two ways. One, you open up shortcuts, and that's huge. The first time you open up the elevator in the Undead Parish, you're like, oh, cool, I can bypass all that stuff. Awesome. So it made it really like intense to go through that the first time, and now the game rewards you. Dragon's Dogma, you're just going to keep going through the same area over and over again. And worse, there's no need to explore. Every time I explore, what do I find? I find a little bit more money. I haven't found like a new weapon. I haven't found anything of value. I found a piece of meat one time in a separate area that it took me 10 minutes to explore.
Was it in a computer?
No, it wasn't in a computer. It was in a freaking box. Like, there's just no need to explore.
Nothing like boxed meat.
Everybody keeps talking about how Dragon's Dogma, it's so much fun to explore, and I agree with Kyle's review. Every time I explore in this game, I just find nothing. Just nothing of value. It's like, why did I do this? Why did I go down this path? Why did I go down this area? There's nothing here. It's bizarre.
On the plus side, the character creator is pretty awesome.
Yes. No. I do want to say a couple good points before I talk about the pawn system. The character creator, you can actually create attractive people.
Oh, no. I did the exact opposite. I have a rogue that's like 4 feet tall, 300 pounds, gray hair with a beard. Yeah. He's awesome. and he's a rogue, so he's sneaky. So you have like this short, fat guy running around with daggers.
No, I really like the character generator. And then
I'm glad that you point that out, actually. Go ahead and finish your thought, but...
Yeah. So the character generator, you can actually make either grotesquely awful-looking people, but just making standard good-looking people is really good. It works. It's functional. Awesome. Of course, you can control the bus size. That's awesome. And then the other thing that I do have to give this game. What?
Look, what? You might be able to control the bus size, but unlike Phantasy Star Online 2, it does not have a 2D grid where you can select both the size and shape.
Okay, that's fair. And then the other thing that I really do like about the game is that if you want to change jobs, if you want to change vocations, it's actually pretty easy. So like I really wasn't liking my Strider character at the beginning of the game, so I switched over to like a fighter and then an assassin. That wasn't that hard. You don't feel like it's not like Skyrim where if you played for a thief for a little bit and then you decide to start playing as a mage, you're going to be punished for it because all the enemies are going to be super tough. There's no level scaling on the enemies, so that part's good. However, let me tell you how much fun it is to change into a sorcerer class and not be able to use any skills because I can't purchase a wand in which to use them. So right there, my ability to switch classes was hampered by the fact that I needed to have a stick in order to cast magic. and it cost 15,000 gold, and I had 2,500. So I was just completely like, oh, okay, that was a waste of time. Well, time to switch back to being a fighter and hit things with a sword. So it's like for every step forward, they take a step back. And I think nowhere is that more prevalent than in the pawn system, which this is a system where at the beginning of the game, you design your main character and then a pawn. This is the NPC character, it's AI controlled, that is going to be working with you the entire game. You get to share pawns with other players. You can summon them into each other's world to make a party of 4. And as pawns help out other players, they gain knowledge. And as they gain knowledge, they will supposedly act smarter in combat. I say supposedly because they sit there and go, yeah, it's weak to fire, and then they're not using fire attacks for some reason. I don't know why, because the AI is stupid. This pawn system is a great idea, but I have one simple question. Why doesn't this game have multiplayer? Why is this the main source of multiplayer in the game? This game is screaming for multiplayer. This game is screaming for Steven to join up in my game. If this game is supposed to be like Skyrim meets Dark Souls meets Monster Hunter, why the hell aren't you letting me have other people join my game? Why are you letting me have these passive controlled AI partners that are dumber than a sack of hammers and barely useful?
Because multiplayer is really tough to do in a game like that
Sure.
from a development standpoint.
Sure.
Like, I have a feeling that in regards to the original Dragon's Dogma, they didn't know how this game was going to sell. So if your choices are add another $2 million to your budget, or $3 million or $4 million, because it's going to get expensive on a game like this, or launch it with a limited multiplayer and keep a lower budget, I mean, it seems like a safe move to go with the lower budget. However, I'm not sure why that wasn't changed with Dark Arisen. Well, perhaps because it's an expansion pack and not a sequel. Maybe in Dragon's Dogma 2, we'll see some kind of legitimate multiplayer.
Well,
but I can understand why this happened.
I
can understand that as well. I mean, it really is like that's a lot to implement.
I would agree, but what it feels like, and again, this is my personal feeling on it. It feels like this game had multiplayer and then it got cut. Like that's the feeling I get. I'm playing this game and I'm like, this feels like it should be multiplayer. This feels like these should be that these are human controlled people and we're coordinating attacks, because there are moments where like, hey, I'm doing no damage to this undead guy until the mage gives me the fire weapon ability, and now I'm doing a ton of damage. It feels like it was cut. And I know I have nothing to back up that argument, but that's the feeling that I get. It feels like this game is missing multiplayer, and instead we got this pawn system, which is an interesting idea, but it never works. The AI is so janky and makes some really foolish decisions at times in combat that will get you killed. And it's not just on the enemy side, it's on your partner side. Like the AI is just stupid in this game. Oh, and also you got to love the fact that the repeated dialogue over and over again from the pawns will grate your nerves within 30 seconds. If I hear one more time, we shouldn't go off the path, for there are monsters. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to freaking lose it. Like, I wish there was an option to make them shut up. I cannot stand their dialogue. It's like, imagine if the dialogue in a BioWare game sucked. Like, Garrus just kept telling you, we need to calibrate and be careful. We need to calibrate and be careful.
Wait, that isn't what happened? Because that's all I remember from.
So you're telling me it's not as good as Rise going, "Oh, senpai, that was so cool."
Oh my god, it is. Oh my god, the voice acting is. To me, this feels like a very half-finished idea. I think there's some grains of something here, like a dark fantasy based around exploration, and it is kind of terrifying at times. You're like, wow, I really don't know what's coming up ahead. I'm a little nervous, but then like. It just falls apart. Like the enemies are just sponges for damage. Like you're just wailing away on them and you're not even doing anything to them. When you can't sidestep attacks, so instead you just slowly turn and try to run away. You're constantly recentering the camera. It just feels shameful. Like that's the word that keeps coming to mind. Is just like this game feels like it was made in a vacuum.
So would you play a sequel?
So it's a Japanese game?
Oh snap!
Oh boy!
No, I feel like that I shouldn't make such sweeping statements, but I feel like that's what you get with a lot of Japanese games, and it can be either completely brilliant or it can be completely awful.
Ugh.
Take case in point, Metal Gear Solid. Now I'm not a Metal Gear Solid fan, so
Metal Gear.
don't take this as if I'm saying it one way or another. Metal Gear kind of worked because it was created in a vacuum. Those game ideas wouldn't have come about in a kind of a collaborative, okay, let's look at what the market is doing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I It feels like this game was made in a marketing meeting where they had just seen ads for big selling games. Like they're
Skyrim
like,
and Dark
well,
Souls.
they're like, oh,
I-
Skyrim, a big open world RPG, cool. Ooh, Dark Souls, this interconnected nature between games, but they didn't take any of the good stuff with that.
No, I have to disagree with the games that you're taking there. Just like every other action RPG, not every other, but many of the action RPGs released in the Japanese market over the past 5 years.
You're gonna bring up the Monster Hunter argument.
Yeah, they only care about that it looks and plays like one game, Monster Hunter.
I guess I wouldn't. I own Try. Like I got it when I got a Pro controller for my Wii. I almost want to put it in and just see, like, is that really what's going on here? Am I just playing what Monster Hunter is apparently, and am I going to hate it just as much?
I think you will hate Monster Hunter when you do play it. No, I'm not gonna lie there, but I think that it is bringing in ideas from other open world games. I'm not going to argue against that, but I think that its primary source of okay, what are we doing is from Monster Hunter.
And that's where I lose. That's where my argument about this feeling like it should have multiplayer and it doesn't. That's why this rings so false to me. Is just like the main thing I hear from people is you got to play multiplayer Monster Hunter. Like nobody plays that game alone. Like you're gonna hate it. And that's why this game, I'm just like, if this game is, I'm not disagreeing with you, John, but I'm like, if this game was going for the Monster Hunter crowd, you kind of missed the point, didn't you? Like you missed the one big thing, which is multiplayer. So I don't know. Like this is one of those moments where I don't want to call out any reviewer on this game. Obviously, if people like it, that's great. But you know how I'm so hard on Final Fantasy 13? At least I can say that game is functional and it accomplishes what it wants to do. And maybe I don't like it, but you know what? Some people seem to, and that's cool for them. This game doesn't function to me. Like, it just doesn't feel functional. It feels like a mess. How can you have a small little map in the corner of the screen that is literally less than useless? Like, I have to constantly hit start, scroll over, hit the big map, figure out where I am, because the mini map in the corner of the screen does nothing.
Hey Rob, did you like Borderlands 1?
Not really.
All right, well Borderlands 1 had no mini map. But that goes into the argument of what is worse, something that doesn't exist or something that exists and is bad.
And this is definitely something that exists and something that is bad. Like the road and you remember how imagine if Red Dead Redemption didn't have the line to trace out the trail that you needed to follow when you were going to an objective. You'd constantly get confused because you'd come to a fork in the road and be like, well, the marker is in front of me north, but I have a decision between going slightly east or slightly west at this fork in the road. And one takes you, to Mexico, and the other would take you to your objective. So you got to go into the mini map and got to go into the main map and figure out where you're going. It's that kind of stuff continually. Why is it that when this game gives me a quest to go kill dire wolves, why doesn't the game have a bestiary to tell me where the dire wolves are or even what they look like?
That's an anti-Winterfell sentiment, and I do not appreciate it.
I know, I agree. I'm House Stark. Don't get me wrong. Actually, I'm more Night's Watch, but whatever. But then
That's
I have
what's
to,
up.
yeah, but then you got to be celibate, and that sucks. But
Yeah.
yeah, very true. But
I was gonna make a marriage joke, but I won't.
thank you. But it's bizarre. Like I get that. I get like the not spelling out the quest design for me. But I'd been killing wolves for the longest time, and I thought that those were dire wolves because they were very large wolves. And then I go there. I spend the 20 minutes marching to where those wolves are. I kill a few of them, and then the game's like, no, those aren't dire wolves. So I got to go all the way back. Oh God, I just. This is the worst game I've played for the site. Easily. It's worse than
Wow.
it's worse than
I was
Lucius.
going to say, is it worse than Lucius?
Yes, it is. Because at least Lucius had like something to it. Like at least it was functional. It didn't make any logical sense, but it worked. This game just I don't know. It's bizarre. I don't get it. I really don't.
I mean, you know what? It's tough for me to say this objectively, but I guess I can appreciate that maybe we're not looking for what some people are looking for in a game. I would really argue that it's not an objective thing in the case of this game because it really feels broken to me. But again, I've only played the demo, and I really didn't like Monster Hunter. I don't love Skyrim, so the stuff that this game is inspired by, other than Dark Souls, which I think is again that's the best action RPG combat system of the gen, but I I don't know. Maybe we just aren't the right audience for this game.
Well, and that's entirely possible. I mean, well, I can't say that all of us share the same. I'd say that you and Rob have pretty similar, expectations. But I think that none of us can appreciate tedium.
Yep.
And I think that lots of games, Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma, and to a lesser extent, even some action RPGs like Diablo have some element of tedium in them. And the question is, how does the game, how does it cope with that tedium? How does it provide you a reason to do those things?
Yeah.
Well,
And
That's
100%
a good
agree.
argument. Like I played Persona 4 on very hard, so I had to grind, but the rewards for the grinding were always they came quickly. I got a lot, and in every aspect, I was always looking forward to something. So it was like, okay, I don't mind doing this grinding because I'm really enjoying this experience, and it's making it last longer for me. I mean, it ended up taking me 2 months because it was all I was playing, but in that case, I was being rewarded for it. And it seems like with these kind of games, I'm not getting the sort of feedback I want when if I would have put the hours into them.
Yeah, that's really how I feel. Like I've played this game for, I think I'm coming up on about 8 hours, and I want to play. I'm not going to write a review with just a few hours into the game. John was right to tell me to, play it a little bit more, see what you think. He's right, but I'm finding that I could sit down for this game for 2 hours and feel like I've accomplished nothing. And I remember a listener wrote us a letter one time, and he was like, "Well, I disagree with you, Rob, when it comes to Dark Souls because I feel like you can waste time in that game." And I feel far more strongly about that now after playing Dragon's Dogma. I completely disagree because when you pick up an item in Dark Souls, it doesn't matter if you die. You keep that item. So there's one item whenever I play Dark Souls, I go for one katana, and I don't care if I die when I get that katana. I got it, and that's going to be my weapon for the whole game, and I'm going to forge that thing. So even then, you're cutting down on tedium. Just sending me back to a load screen after that is just terrible. Like it's awful to feel like, wow, I just walked 20 minutes all the way down here, got killed in a random battle. There was no checkpoint, no save point, and now I have to restart the whole thing. Like I turn off the game. I'm like, no, that's like reading a book and being told, oh yeah, you read 30 pages. Well, guess what? Reread.
I feel like, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me here, but I would like to see more games implement a less stringent like death penalty. Like I really enjoy the way that Rift or WoW or Diablo handles death, which is we're going to respawn you. You keep all of your progress. You keep everything else. We're going to take some of your money or something else.
I agree. I agree. I was replaying the Genesis Shadowrun yesterday because I'm obviously very excited for Shadowrun Returns, and I did not remember that game has a system just like you're talking about, John. Like you die and they take a little bit of your money and then they send you on your way.
It's because the dock wagon comes and gets you.
Yeah, I know, but like that's awesome. Like that.
No,
That's
I know, but not every.
That's
game
right.
in the
I
world
forgot
has
about the dock wagon.
But
It was so cool.
I think that's why I like that kind of game because it doesn't feel like it's just what you're saying, John. It doesn't feel like I'm wasting my time. There were a couple days where I came home and I'm like, wow, I only have like an hour to play Dragon's Dogma. This is not a game that you can play for an hour. Like you will literally accomplish. First off, it takes about 15 minutes to get to the game because you go through about 18 loading menus and two separate start menus. And it just takes forever to even get the game started. And then once you finally do, you got to figure out where you are. It just, ugh, ugh.
Well, I think this goes back to a topic that we've discussed many, many times, which is why do people play games? And I think that, and I'm not trying to turn this into an age thing, but I think that a lot of younger gamers, they have less money than time, so they want games that are incredibly long and give them an intense amount of content, even if that content is not quite as good. Whereas I would rather play a game like Portal 2 all day long, where it's 5 hours long, but it's 5 hours of good, straightforward content. I wouldn't want to play Portal for 50 hours.
Yeah, my brother-in-law complained to me because I was telling him how amazing BioShock Infinite was, and he was like, "Well, how long did it take to beat for you to beat it?" And I'm like, about 10, 11 hours. And he's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but those 10 or 11 hours were incredible. Like I remember everything about that game. There was literally no tedium. I just had a blast playing this game." And I agree with you, John. I want more of that. I'm getting a little tired of like looking at my hours in a game and I'm like, wow, I really feel like I've accomplished nothing and I feel like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. And you also have to, if you're going to have an exploration system in a game, you need to incentivize me to explore. And Dragon's Dogma it's bland. It's just bland, generic fantasy land. It's just like you're walking around Oblivion. There's no sense of style to this game. It's just there are literally just goblins and wolves and harpies. It's like they just took a monster manual and just like threw a bunch of dudes in there. Okay, cool.
I mean, I would say I can enjoy both. Generally speaking, if I'm gonna play a game like Bioshock, I don't want it to be 50 hours. But then on the other hand, there are certain games I'm willing to spend a significantly larger number of hours on.
Yeah.
But I think it differs based on whatever the experience is.
Yeah, meanwhile, I've put 50 hours into Dishonored because I keep playing the game over and over again because I keep getting something new out of it. Like, and I really enjoy how that game plays. And man, I don't know. I mean,
Uh,
again, if people like Dragon's Dogma, that's great. I think we're gonna get another one for sure. That Deep Down video for the PlayStation 4, you got to believe that's a project they're working on. And I feel like there is a core of something here. I just want to see like, okay, let's see what you guys do with this. I feel very similar about this game the way I felt about the original Assassin's Creed, where I was just like, okay, this feels like y'all had an idea, then you failed miserably to make a game about it, but you could make this work. This is not unsalvageable. You can do something with this, and let's hope they do something with it. God, I feel sick to my stomach now. I just don't even like talking about this game.
Well, we can move on to news if you'd like.
I'd like to. Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? Anything? Joy, happiness?
I've been playing Pandora's Tower, and that's pretty cool, but I don't think anybody else has. So
I've not been
talk
playing that.
No, talk about it. I
Yeah,
don't
come
know
on.
anything about that game. If you're willing to, please do. I want to hear about that.
Well,
I've played some of it, and I disagree with Derek, but
of course you do. That's your thing. It's disagreeing with me. No, it's okay. Well, then by all means, I mean, I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Well, so no. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Pandora's Tower, third Operation Rainfall game, kind of more action RPG than RPG, or action than RPG, but you're a dude who's got a quasi girlfriend thing that's like, oh my god, I've been cursed by a demon and I need demon flesh to not turn into this huge monster thing. And you're like, it's okay, babe. I'm gonna go get you that demon flesh. And then you go into these giant towers and kill demons to bring back the flesh and attempt to lift the curse. And you've got this like chain thing, and you're like, oh, are you Simon Belmont? And you're like, no, sorry, man, I'm not. I forgot the character's name.
Aaron, but
Yeah,
they say, it sounds like Aaron, like just Aaron.
I'm Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron.
What are your actual criticisms?
No, I was trying to be funny in describing the game, Derek. No,
Yeah.
I feel like the Pandora's Tower has a really wonky control scheme, no matter if you're using the classic controller or the Wii Remote and Nunchuck.
Yeah.
It seems like it's Mega Man in RPG form, kind of like you are doing a whole lot of trial and error.
I was gonna say because that sounded like the best thing ever.
No, think of it in the way of, okay, I've got you've got to kill Quick Man. Well, instead, you've got to kill the first boss of the tower. You go, okay, this is what he's doing in this stage. Okay, he's changed it up. Okay, after he's below 50% health, he does this, and it's trying to figure out what the boss does. The problem is with the wonky control system, I felt like I could never. I knew exactly what I needed to do and when, but I didn't feel like I could accurately do it on a regular basis because I couldn't get the aiming just right.
I can
Or
agree with that to an extent. Yeah, the controls are like they're kind of like they're bizarrely laid out. Like I feel like when I'm holding a Wiimote and the nunchuck, which is I'm playing it like that because you have to target the screen a lot to chain things. And I know that you can use a classic controller, and I think you can use like the right analog stick to move the reticle. But I agree with you because it feels oddly like everything is spread out between the nunchuck and the Wiimote in a way that feels unintuitive. Like a lot of the times you have to press C on the nunchuck to like fall down from ledges purposely because you need to get to a lower platform or whatever. But like I accidentally press it all the time and fall off, and then I'm like, oh, I have to go back up the stairs again. I get what you're saying though. I think it calls out to kind of an older school of game design of just pattern recognition in bosses and figuring out a weakness and then going after that weakness. But I agree that it's not always easy to do that. Like it doesn't feel like it's super precisely in your control all the time.
And like I have no problem with pattern recognition. I mean that's cool. Let's understand what this does. I mean I played WoW for 7 years and I rated. That's entirely okay. What's this boss going to do at certain points? Like I said, I just feel like the game prevents me from doing that sometimes with the controls, and I think that you don't disagree with that. But
no, I don't.
Oftentimes, I think kind of we see the same thing in games, and we just have different tolerances for different things.
Yeah.
What is the writing, story, music like the other stuff?
So I think the game makes a bad first impression in terms of story because they throw you in like what is it, in media res? Is that how you say it? In the middle of the story, basically?
Yeah, in medias res.
In medias res.
Medias res, whatever.
They don't. That's not apparent. Like when you start the game, it seems like, wow, they just gave me like 3 minutes of exposition, and I'm already like trying to risk my life for this random girl I didn't know. But as you go through the game, every time you conquer a tower, because there's like the 13 towers, and every time you beat the boss at the top of each one, you get a piece of master flesh. Like John was saying, you give the master flesh to your pseudo girlfriend, and then it's supposed to help, alleviate this. It's eventually when you get all the pieces of master flesh, which you rip out of these beasts, then it's going to cure her curse. She has to eat it in these little cutscenes where it's all like gross and she's chomping into some gooey, nasty purple.
I saw one of those on game trailers, and I was like, what?
So every time you give her a piece, she has like a little vision, and the visions are kind of like vignettes that explain background story, and there's also cutscenes that explain that the two characters aren't actually just strangers, like they knew each other, and I feel like the approach to the story is kind of weirdly handled. I don't want to say it's poorly handled, but they definitely make you think at the beginning of the game that you're just some random dude saving some random chick, but you do know each other, and they open that up more as the story goes. I think that it's a game that has rough edges, but I think it has a lot of heart. And I don't think that the writing is like amazing or anything, but I enjoy the relationship between the characters, and I feel protective of Elena. Like she's one of those characters that you're just like, oh, I want to save you. I like that they show when you're in the towers adventuring, because it's it's just you. It's like a single player action RPG. When you're in the tower adventuring, as you make progress, occasionally he'll be like, I wonder how Elena's doing. And it'll show a little cutscene of her in the tower, like trying to find a book. Like she's trying to translate something for you. Like you brought back a note from the tower and she's working on translating it for you. Or she's making you like healing items or whatever. And she's like, I hope he likes it. And it's just kind of sweet. I like the dynamic. I think it's weird that you play a lot of RPGs where the girl, you have like a girl with a mysterious illness. It's an RPG trope, but she'll be with you, like fighting, she doesn't have to be helpless back at a home base and you don't have to keep going back to her. But in this game, I think it works pretty well. I don't know if you have specific questions, I can try and answer them. I like this game. I think that it's rough, but I don't think that it's bad.
I know so little about it. It's hard for me to come up with questions, but I mean,
Oh, and you asked about the music. I don't think the music is awesome. I think there's not a lot of it, and like every time you go in a tower, you get the same song. It starts playing, and then I think it switches up a little bit as it goes. It's not the kind of music I'd really like put on my iPhone and listen to. Like, man, this is such a good soundtrack. But it's fitting for the game, and I like the aesthetic. It feels like it harkens back to the days of like PS2 action games. Like it's very Devil May Cry aesthetic, like kind of gothic, but also clearly Japanese inspired, and I like that. And if I had to explain it by comparing it to other games, I'd say it's like Zelda meets Shadow of the Colossus meets Mega Man, just in terms of how you go through and uh, you get new abilities. Well, you don't really get new abilities. You get new weapons, and then throughout the first few towers, they introduce a couple of new abilities to you. But it's just like we said before. It's like pattern recognition in bosses, and then it feels very arcadey the way that you tackle each tower one at a time, and you're trying to find the most efficient way through. And you can like unlock shortcuts that help you traverse the tower faster because you have to go back to your home base every now and then. You have to rip out servant flesh from standard monsters and give it to Elena, otherwise her curse takes over and you get a game over because it's like constantly ticking down as you go.
I gotcha.
And I think that what I like is I think that it's actually pretty compelling, the whole transformation thing. Like, yeah, it's kind of an enforced time limit, but if you take too long to bring a piece of flesh back to Elena, like you'll literally go back to your home base and there'll be like puddles of goopy monster blood everywhere, and she'll be like cowering in the basement under a hood with tentacles coming out of her, and she's like, "Oh, don't look at me." So it makes you want to get the flesh faster and bring it back to her because I'm going for a quote unquote perfect run. Like I don't want her to transform. And one time I was too slow and I came back and she was like, "Oh," like tentacles everywhere. So I felt bad. And it affects the ending that you get. I forgot to say that you give her gifts, and generally, like if you treat her well and you answer her questions, like you can chat with her whenever you go back. It raises like an affinity gauge, and how high your affinity is affects what ending you get. There's 5 endings as far as I know. So it's a weird like action game meets dating sim almost that I think is going to be overlooked by a lot of people. But I like it. It is cool.
Cool.
It's kind of like the last big Wii release, isn't it?
It is.
Probably
I
the
think
last
so.
we release at all, other than just Dance. I was gonna say Just Cause. Just Dance like 500.
Hey, I'm gonna miss the Wii.
I'm not.
I'm not either.
I'm not either. Yeah. There's some amazing games on the Wii, but I'm not going to miss the system.
Like, if I can get a new Trauma game on Wii U, that will sell me on the Wii U, and we'll be good.
Trauma is awesome.
Do we want to move on to news? And can I, before we like get too far into that, can I ask the question of what do you guys think about Nintendo not having a press conference this year?
Like
it's kind of how I feel. I'm like,
let's be honest at this point. I mean, yeah, you get some press from non-gaming outlets through your press conference. I think that in regards to actually getting announcements out to their fans, Nintendo Direct has been amazingly successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I if they're not announcing a system and they're not announcing anything other than the games that they've already told us that they're bringing out, why?
No, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem. The Nintendo Directs have been fine, and why not? Why not take control? Why not say we're going to announce stuff in our own presentations? We're not going to save it for E3 and let them dictate like how we control the release of our information.
I think it's also a financial thing. I mean, why spend that money when they don't have to? Especially right now, I think it's good business. I think it's maybe it's less exciting to not have a big explosive conference, but I mean, everybody can watch it on Nintendo Direct.
I think we're looking at a Nintendo right now that's very similar to a Nintendo in like 2001, where they've got an incredibly successful handheld and a not really all that successful home console.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it seems like they're announcing a lot of stuff Nintendo Direct wise via 3DS or for 3DS. It seems to me like they're positioning E3 to be the Wii U show. At least,
It seems like it, yeah.
I think that would be smart on their part because they don't have to sell anybody in the 3DS at this point. But I mean, you always have to. But
I hope for E3 that we see a lot more multiplayer stuff for Wii U that takes advantage of the asynchronous stuff.
Yeah.
Or not asynchronous. Or yeah, asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical, yeah.
Asynchronous is not at the same time. Thanks, John. Because I think that they have a great ability to make good games with that. I mean, you kind of saw that initially with the Game Boy Advance on the GameCube. Like there was great stuff to come out of that. And I think if they can get something similar going with the Wii U, it can be successful with the core audience.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think there are a lot of possible applications for that controller, both casual and hardcore. I mean, and like board games on there would be really cool, or like games like Cards Against Humanity, or like create some kind of Dungeons and Dragons style game. We talked about this, where like the dungeon master has the gamepad and everybody else is like using a Wii remote or a gamepad to like manage their character, and like the guy running it can like summon monsters with his tablet and stuff. There are so many cool ideas.
I don't own a Wii U yet because there's nothing that I want on it. But apparently they released a free Rayman Legends game where one person is playing the platformer on the PC or on the television screen, and the other person with the controller is like moving platforms so that the person who is running through the stage has things to jump onto.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds cool.
And I like that's a great application of that. And if companies can figure out ways to do that effectively across genres, like I said, I think that it can be incredibly successful.
Yeah, I think it's... Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think that what a lot of people are flipping out about is they're like, oh, Nintendo knows that they can't compete with PlayStation and Microsoft, and that's why they're not going to be there. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think they know who they're going to sell their console to, and they're going to sell a ton of games. I think they're going to sell Wii U's. I don't think the Wii U is going to be a runaway success. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a new successor to that faster than we were expecting. But in terms of the 3DS, they're going to continue to just roll in the cash with that. The Wii U is going to find an audience. You got to remember that the first generation of new console games are usually, and let's be fair here, crap. So I'm not expecting anything great on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox, whatever, for at least the first year. Anything that isn't already on another console, maybe looking a little bit lower res, whatever, Watch Dogs, this, that, and the other. But they know the audience that they're going to make their money off of. And so I think that, yeah, you could argue that there was some market confusion with the Wii U and a lot of people not understanding that you needed to buy the new console. It wasn't just a new controller. But I don't think this is doom and gloom time for Nintendo. I do think, however, that the Wii U will not be around as long as maybe it was intended. I feel like it was maybe a stopgap, chance to try some new things. And I do think Nintendo will have some new piece of console hardware fairly quickly.
I gotta disagree with that. I think that it's not like Nintendo to abandon a chipset in regards to maybe there's a streamlined version or whatever, because Nintendo loves to do that. But I think they just need to give the market time. I mean, think about it. The Wii U hasn't even been out a year yet.
True.
Yeah, and I think everything that is released these days has a year, 2 year growing pains period where there's nothing on it or very little on it. I mean, people 2 years ago were like, 3DS is doomed. I mean, every other article was like, well, 3DS is doomed. And all the smug internet commenters were like, oh, Nintendo sucks.
And same thing with the Vita, and same thing with every brand new system that comes out.
Exactly. So I think we're around the time where we're going to start hearing about Wii U games. And then in the next year or so, you're going to start seeing Wii U titles. And I'm hoping that is the exact same case with the Vita. Because, I mean, it's getting games, but they definitely need to push. It's just it's a time thing.
Yeah, that happens with every new console.
Mm-hmm.
So, news?
Yep, go for it.
All right.
Throw more dots.
More dots. Crimes and Punishments. Sherlock Holmes has been announced to be using the Unreal Engine 3. This is a point-and-click adventure from Frogwares where you play as Sherlock Holmes.
And Watson.
And Watson, and you get things done.
Is this the Cumberbatch version?
No.
Nor is it the Downey Jr. version.
Don't care.
It is the not based on an actor version. But the first one's actually not too bad. I don't think we have a review of it, but I played about an hour or two of it, and it was fun. And hopefully this one is good too.
Word up.
Rob's favorite click and click action RPG,
Click, 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 click.
Diablo 3, has announced its pre-order bonuses for PlayStation 3, in which you will get the Infernal Helm, which gives you experience bonus. They also released a couple of new screenshots, which you can see on the website. There's no date yet, but it will be out this year.
Cool. I'm interested to see how it plays with the controller. I think that playing through Inferno again and getting killed by one-hit kills where I'm like, man, I really wish I could like move my character at the same time I'm using spells and stuff and not have to choose between the two. And I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, this was always meant to be on console. But I do think that some of the things that they tried to do to make the game more action-like are going to work better on a console. So, yeah, I'm interested, but I got to be honest, I'm kind of all Diablo 3'd out at this point.
Well, I don't think this is for you, Rob.
No, I don't think it is either. I don't think that this is you bought the PC version, you get the PlayStation 3 version.
But, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think it's probably going to play like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and every other, kind of top-down action RPG that's ever been released on a console.
Whack him and slice him.
Atlas USA, or not Atlas USA, Atlas Japan showed the box art for the remake of Etrian Odyssey called Etrian Odyssey Millennium Maiden for 3DS, and it's a pretty cool looking box art. Reminds me of Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm. It's like green and white.
Yeah, it's green and white. It's got an anime girl on the cover.
Yep.
What you would expect out of Etrian Odyssey.
She's so moe. She's gonna be my waifu.
There is a 3DS version of.
I'm glad you just went on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please do. You should.
Dear God.
Nepgear is going to be my waifu.
Ugh.
She is my waifu.
No, Chia is your waifu.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Never mind. I take it back.
Hakuoki, Memories of the Shinsengumi, is a port of the PSP version. It's coming out for the Nintendo 3DS. It's going to have 6 new side stories, which fills in kind of gaps. And you'll be able to use the 3DS cameras to take pictures of yourself with all the game's hot guys.
Okay.
Why are you laughing? That is a real functionality.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand, though. Never mind. Just
so you can have a virtual husbando.
Yeah, have you never seen like the way pretty much every game does this now? Like the Street Fighter Cross Tekken for PSP does it, or for Vita does it, where you use the system's camera to take a picture, and then you can it superimposes like a game's character on it.
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I guess like I'll probably get that because I have the PSP version, but I haven't played it. And now there's going to be a version with more stuff. I like visual novels, good ones at least. So
yeah, I would like to see another Lux Payne game. I think that was a game that had a better localization, that it would have been better received.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be the same case for Muramasa. Like Muramasa is a game that needed a better localization and a button to jump.
Huh, so, I wonder what the thread is between those two games.
I don't know. Maybe it's the same company.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm actually is it the same company?
Ignition published both of those games, and they both had awful
okay.
localizations.
Arcrise Fantasia also.
Yeah, say the Arcrise Fantasia had an abysmal localization.
Yeah, which we haven't heard much about Ignition lately.
No, we really haven't.
Maybe they're getting ready to start their engines.
You're fired.
I just got that.
I probably deserve that.
If you are in Europe, then you'll be happy to know that Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers will be coming this fall, courtesy of NIS America, which it still makes me laugh every time I see that NIS America is bringing a game to Europe. It's going to be out in the fall. We don't know when in the fall. But I know that you guys talked about Soul Hackers last episode, I believe.
Yes, we did.
So if you're a fan of, I don't know if you guys said good things or bad, but if you like dungeon crawlers in the Shin Megami Tensei universe,
there you
congratulations,
go.
Europeans.
Soul Hackers is pretty cool.
Look at you, hacker.
Look at you, Soul Hacker.
That's no. You are not running through my corridors.
Shodan, Shock,
Pathetic
Hacker,
creature
Devil
of-
Summoner, Sacrifice 2.
If for some reason you have not purchased the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, coming out a week before E3 is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Legendary Edition, which contains all of the game's DLC included. It's going to be $60.
Does it have a legendary amount of bugs?
You know what?
They
I
squashed a whole lot of them.
Yeah,
I thought that
they've-
Skyrim was fairly clean compared to every other Fallout.
I think compared
Yeah.
to other Bethesda games, and especially now, I mean, they still have been patching it, so I got to give them at least credit for supporting it.
Yes, you have to. You want let's say something positive about Skyrim, even though it's a great game. Bethesda has done a great job supporting that with patches. They're on like version 1.16.
Something
Or one-
like that, yeah.
Yeah, they've patched it with major patches multiple times, which is fantastic to hear.
Just
Yeah.
might just be my opportunity to play the game for the first time.
It's
So-
not a bad, like, it's a fun game. Like, I think, especially if you don't care for narrative driven stuff, if you just want to explore and get stronger, it's a great game.
So on this Legendary Edition page that I loaded up, I have a Spanish AARP ad, which I don't know how that works.
That's
You mean arpe?
Yes, exactly. And it's
weird.
telling me to click aquí, which I believe is click here.
Aquí está.
And I have one last news story. If you like characters with giant busts, Dragon's Crown has been set for an August 6th release date. That's coming out for both the Vita and the PlayStation 3. It will not be cross-buy. If you want to buy it for the PlayStation 3, it's $50. If you want to buy it for the Vita, it's $40.
I wonder why they did that. Because didn't they originally say it would be?
Well, that was a game that was initially supposed to be published by Ignition,
Hmm.
and Atlas
Yeah.
picked
were
up
like,
the
no.
publishing rights like a year ago. And that's all. This game has a rocky development history that comes in with the fact that we never got that. That's why we never got White Knight Chronicles. I own this game in the import. Why do I not know its name? The Vanillaware game for PSP. Someone help me.
Grand Knight's History.
Yes, Grand Knight's History. That's the reason that we never got Grand Knight's History, was because all of Vanillaware's development resources were in Dragon's Crown.
I remember when we first heard about that game at E3 2011. I remember like standing at the booth for Ignition and then being like, "Yeah, we're doing this thing," and we were like, "Yeah," and then
That
we
was
saw
it.
like a logo. Yeah, I think we saw like a really short teaser.
Yeah, there was a 30-second trailer.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, that's a giant bust.
Yeah, how do we
We
feel
should get
about that?
the version that Penny Arcade. Did you see that Penny Arcade comic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do we think about that art design? I mean, it doesn't really. I'm not offended by it, but it holds no appeal to me. So I'm like, whatever. Like,
I think the art design in general is fantastic. I don't personally have a taste for that character design, but that's why I just won't use that character.
I think it's fine. I mean,
What I
If
think
it-
it's a... Oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay. I think that I don't want to say that people are blowing it out of proportion or like, oh, they should stop being so sensitive, because I mean there's definitely that to consider. Like, is that misogynistic? But it's also kind of like, I feel like Kamitani just had a vision and he followed it, and that's the way that he wanted to draw that art. And I think, I mean, the art direction is gorgeous. I don't really understand why they have to have like quadruple E's. And I guess like the fighter is buff. They're all like ridiculously proportioned.
I think that is a very unique art style. Again, I'm also I'm not a huge fan, but I'm not like, oh, I'm not going to play this because of that. I enjoyed all the drama that surrounded it with Kamatani, but I don't know. It seems like all of Vanillaware's games have kind of had this distinct art style.
yeah, I was very much in the same vein I was with like comics back in the early 90s when they kind of just started going nuts with the TNA when it came to female designs, and I was like, I'm not really into that, so I didn't start a petition or start complaining about it. I was just like, yeah, I'm not into this, so I'm not gonna seek it out.
I think it's indicative of a problem. No, or I would call it a problem, but it's also something that guy has no power to change, and he has to sell his game. And we may be the aberration here. The people will buy that and will love it, and will be like, "This is awesome, huge boobs, I love it." You know, whether or not we like it is irrelevant because we're in the minority. And I think the vocal minority says there's a problem with this, but there's a silent majority that is going to buy it, eat it up, and love it.
I wonder if George Kamitani worked with Rob Liefeld at all on this.
Who?
I don't know who that is.
I hate you all.
Yeah, I missed it.
Rob Liefeld is he's a comics guy who used to work for Marvel. He created the character Cable, but all of his characters are like absurdly proportioned.
Really?
Ah,
Yeah. And then he also has no concept of like how perspective works. But that's neither here nor there.
okay. Well, that's good.
That's it. That's all I've got for
At
news.
least the game's gonna be cool. Yeah. I mean, I think the game looks cool. We can all agree on that. It
Yeah,
looks
look,
like fun.
Kamitani worked on the old Capcom Dungeons and Dragons games, the side scrollers.
Mhm.
So if we get more of that, I'm happy. You know?
Yeah. Same.
I'm,
And it has online play, so cool with me.
No, I'm totally okay with it. I think sometimes we try to be a little too PC, and people end up kind of kicking up dirt where it doesn't really need to be kicked up. But people
Do
are
we know
entitled.
do we know if that game has cross-platform play?
I do not believe so.
Doesn't it?
Remember?
I thought
I-
it did.
Maybe
Well, it has cross save for sure. I
Why?
don't know if it has
Why is
cross-platform play.
Why is Captain America's chest 24 inches in front of his chin?
Holy crap!
What?
Wow. John just
That-
gave us a picture of his art style.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
Rob
is that-
Liefeld's Captain America.
Is that
Oh my
legit?
God.
This isn't like photoshopped or something?
No, that's a legitimate piece of artwork.
All right, well, so obviously nobody can complain about this guy drawing huge boobs because he's Captain America has huge boobs in this.
He could put a freaking cup of coffee on his chest, and my God,
Dude, look at his chin. He looks like Batman took like a chisel to his chin and just went to town.
yeesh. Okay, well that's fun. All right, so
That's
are we done here?
Not sexy. Not sexy.
Not really digging on that. Okay, we good?
I'm good.
Sure. Thanks for listening to whatever encounter.
Yep. Thank you
The
so much. Oh, shut up. Thank you so much for listening to Random Encounter. Very important to subscribe to us through the RSS feed or through iTunes. Make sure to give us reviews. I'd like to someday get us on like the front page when people do like a search for RPGs. So that'd be nice. But it just hurts my feet. Every time you don't give us a positive review, a puppy dies, and then Rob has to play Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah, that
That-
should be the real tagline.
Oh god, I actually got depressed midway through the show. Like that's why I got quiet. I just didn't want to talk anymore. Like I'm just so, I have no energy left after complaining about that game.
Do the review, get it out of your system, have a drink, and it'll be over.
And then play some Bioshock like I noticed you doing the other day.
Yeah, I needed that. I needed a little bit of Bioshock to make me feel better. So thanks again, everybody, for John, for Steven, for Derek. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see y'all later.
Do 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 do.
Honk!
Shh.